What is going on, YouTube? So sorry for the weird location change. I'm actually not at my house right now, so obviously shooting in a different spot. But wanting to come back with another NBA draft scouting report, second one of today, and that will be Gary Payton II. So I did say I was going to be doing Diamond Stone today. Decided to change that up. Wanted to go with a little bit different player. So gonna do GP2. He is a 6'3", I believe 185-pound point guard out of Oregon State, from Seattle, Washington, with a 6'8" wingspan, and he is a senior. 23 years old as well. So get into some of his strengths, and first one in my mind, this is again in my mind, is his intangibles. It's hard to find his skill set with his leadership ability on most teams. This is a guy that carried Oregon State to the tournament. The team was on his shoulders pretty much the entire year. He played the most minutes on the team, 34.4. Took the most shots, about 15 shots per game. Led them in points per game. Was second on the team in rebounding. And like I said, pretty much the heart and soul of that team. And he took a while, like I said, I believe a 4-year player, took a couple years to develop, and really took Oregon State as far as they've been in a while. So that's a big thing. That development ability and that patience, that's something that you really like if you're an NBA coach, GM, whatever. And even though the age might be a factor and not a positive one, it's something that you really can appreciate, that his loyalty and like I said, his development in that system. So second strength is his overall athleticism. He's got good leaping ability. Actually very low body fat at 4%. Didn't know that, but anyway. Like I said, good leaping ability, good straight line speed, good size as well for his position. When you're talking about a guy at 6'3", and a 6'8" wingspan at his position, that's there's just some incredibly good measurables at the one. So third strength is his rebounding ability, and this might be one of the biggest and most underrated strengths for him. You're talking about a guy that averaged 8 rebounds per game at the one. That's insane. Again, a hard stat to find at the point guard spot. It's not like he had a low amount of assists, but he did outdo his assists by about 3 assists per game, or by 3 rebounds, and that was translated on both ends of the floor. 5.5 defensive rebounds per game and 2.4, or 5.5 defensive and then 2.4 offensive. He can hit the glass hard on both ends of the floor. Comes back to his speed, leaping ability, motor, and just overall basketball IQ. Knows how to get that position and be able to get to the boards more than you would expect out of really any point guard. So fourth strength is his defense. Again, this comes back to his rebounding, his discipline. Only 2.6 personal fouls per game. Played 34.4 minutes, so you're looking at around 3 personal fouls per 40 minutes. So really never ran into foul trouble. Consistency on defense needs to be worked out a little bit, but I'd say that's really his only knock on defense. And then also 2.5 steals per game. Another elite stat on the defensive end of the floor. So get into some of his weaknesses. First one is outside shooting. This will translate into free throw shooting as well. So talking about a guy that is a 51% shooter, or from 2, 51.6 to be exact, 48.3% field goal shooter, and a 31 or 32% three-point shooter. Not a strong point for him, never has been. I don't think it ever will be. It might translate, but normally this is a guy that is going to be more accustomed to shooting on the shooting inside the 2-point line, and more often than not inside the free throw line. So that translates into his free throw shooting, which he shoots at a not so great 65%, actually 64.7 to be exact. and didn't really get to the line that much, 3.7 attempts per game. That's not something that you really feel, it's not a percentage you really feel good about, but again, for how much he had the ball in his hand and how much he was driving and how much he was shooting, that really wasn't an extremely high average. So second weakness is his creating ability, and that'll kind of translate into his third weakness a little bit. So you're talking about a guy that pretty much lives off of I wouldn't say post play, but lower mid-range shooters about 8 feet, and then also living off the drive. He needs a little bit more polish on things like turning the corner, floaters. Those are two things that he could definitely use improvement on, and if he can improve those two things, then he becomes a very, very dangerous weapon inside the free throw line, just really anywhere inside the arc. And again, he needs to be able to create his own shot a little bit more, be able to create a little bit more offense for his teammates. Again, when you can't respect his outside shot, it gives the defenders an opportunity to play out a little, or play in a little bit, and force him to drive one way when he's not extremely strong on both hands. So third weakness is his development at the one. So this is off a combination of a couple factors. One being his age. The fact that he's 23 years old, you would hope that he's extremely polished as a point guard. You'd hope that he's extremely polished at the one, and you would also hope that he can really develop into, or really have developed into already, a point guard that would be able to get you 7-8 assists per game, be a decent outside shooter, and really have figured out his strong suits to this point. Again, even at this point, a lot of what you get when you draft Gary Payton is going to be, upside, his potential. Obviously, a question mark when you draft a player like that. You hope it happens, but it doesn't always. Now, talking about this, I think that he will be able to find, if I could say anything he develops into, he will find his game inside the paint. Not inside the paint, but inside the arc. He should be able to develop, like I said, a better floater, just better shot on the run, be able to drive kick a little bit better. I've mentioned that a lot recently, but that's a big part of a lot of teams' game now, with faster ball movement and small ball play, and also some improved outside shooting just in the NBA as a whole. And when you're talking about the NBA nowadays, he's an okay point guard in transition, but he's not the greatest. Like I said, his outside shooting is limited, so so defenders can get a little bit further from him, play off him a little bit, and kind of force him to one hand on the drive. He does have good slashing ability. Don't take this as he can't get to the rim. He can get to the rim. He can play above the rim as well. Like I said, he's got a good vertical, and he's got a respectable standing reach already at about 8'4". So it's something you got to respect too. But again, you'd like him to be a little bit more polished as a point guard. You'd like him to be a little bit more polished on the offensive end of the floor as well. Again, for being 23 years old, actually turning 24 in the middle of the NBA season next year. When you're comparing him to other guys like, I'd say younger point guards, and Tyler Ulis, who's 20 years old, Kay Felder, who I believe is 19 or 20, and then just some other players in the draft, because Chris Dunn is, I believe, 21 right now, and then actually point guards in this draft are a little bit older. But anyway, he still is the oldest point guard in this class out of guys projected to go in the top 50. So that pretty much does it for his strengths and weaknesses. So getting to draft projections, best scheme fits, and where I think he's gonna, or what team I think he'll end up going to. So you're talking about a guy that probably won't be a first-round pick. He's only been a first-round pick in one of my mock drafts. I'm writing this down a little bit. Okay, that's a little bit too far. All right, but again, you're talking about a guy that's probably going to be a second-round pick. The bigger question is, where does he go in the second round? So the last NBADraft.net mock draft that is up has him going at number 43 to the Houston Rockets. So and they even mentioned that he can play a little bit of shooting guard in this, but I don't think that'll happen. So again, you're probably looking at a guy that gets picked between picks 40 to 55. I don't think he's gonna make it, or I don't think he will still be on the board at the end of the draft. But it is a pretty heavy point guard. It'll be a pretty heavy point guard draft in the second round. I mean, you're talking about guys like Cat Barber, Wade Baldwin, Demetrius Jackson, Tyler Ulis that all still might be available in the second round. Isaiah Cousins, Julian Jacobs, Tyron Wallace. There's a lot. And then Melo Trimble too, if he actually ends up getting drafted. So when I talk about best teams for him, I think you're looking at a backcourt that's already going to have a team that already has one good distributor. I think a really good fit for him would be the LA Clippers. I believe Jamal Crawford might be on the move this offseason, so they might have a need to back up Chris Paul. And there's no guarantee that Chris Paul will be there in 2 years either. He becomes a free agent in, I believe, 2018, either 2017 or 2018. That's an intriguing fit for me. Again, he'll be able to polish himself off there. A few other fits that I like. You're gonna need to find a team that has a need at point guard in their rotation, but is already fine at the time being. The Houston Rockets are a good fit in my mind. Also, one more fit that I like. I don't like the fact that they've had a lot of failed point guards in the draft, but I do like the fit with the Dallas Mavericks. He gets it going behind Darren Williams right now, who actually had somewhat of a resurgent year. Obviously not the vintage Darren Williams, but again, he'd be able to fit in a system with a guy that's already seen a couple All-Star seasons. Used to be one of the better point guards in the draft. Also was a very good facilitator, ball handler, that sort of thing. All right, so when you talk about stat projections for Gary Payton, I think you're looking at a guy that's going to average no more than 4 points his rookie year. I don't think he's going to get much playing time his rookie year. I think this is a guy that's going to end up coming on late as a rotation player. Honestly, I think Gary Payton has a high upside, and like I said, he was an incredibly valuable player for Oregon State, and you can never count this guy out as being a valuable member of your team in the future. But for the time being, I think he's going to kind of fizzle out in the NBA for maybe 2 years, and then you'll see him come along later. Now, there's no guarantee about that, but that's just kind of what I feel like. This is a very sleeper-heavy draft because there's a large presence of international players in this draft, and there's also a large presence of unheard-of names, really, until recently. This has been mentioned as a pretty weak draft, and in my mind, it definitely is. But again, it seems like Gary Payton's name is lost in a mix of point guards that, even though he is actually at the top end of height in this class for point guards, he's in the bottom end of facilitating and outside shooting ability. All right, so that pretty much does it. I will try to come back tomorrow. I have somewhat of a busy day tomorrow, which is why I try to get so many done the last few days. But again, I will try to come back tomorrow with, I believe, Paul Zipser and Diamond Stone, some combination of those two. Might be a few different, but I believe that's who it is. So that's pretty much it. If you have not seen, the last one was Marquise Chris. That link will be in the outro, and the link to the entire playlist, as always, will be in the description below. That's pretty much it. There you go. City of Washington. He's power forward, and he's from Rancho Cordova, California. So, get into some of his strengths. First one is he's an elite athlete at the floor. He's a great leaper. Let me see if I can pull up his vertical. But he's a guy that plays